Loud. Okay. Okay. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to our show. This is the Scott and Brianna show right now. Until we come up with a better name, we are just having this as our first episode. But we are two crypto fans, and we met each other in a crypto course that we were taking together. And we thought it'd be fun if we just get on here and talk about crypto, talk about some of the news articles we thought were interesting, talk about the ideas and thoughts that we're thinking about in crypto, and just kind of riff off of each other and get each other's ideas. And you guys can come along for the ride and see what you think. So, anyways, so my name is J. Scott McMillan. I go by Scott, though. I am a life coach, and I'm also a huge crypto enthusiast, and I actually now call myself a crypto investor and crypto educator, because one of my goals and missions in life is to bring the world of crypto to everyone, help educate, help people feel comfortable with it, and have them understand that it's not as scary as a lot of people think it is. So, and Brianna, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Brianna, and I have a new YouTube channel called Purified People, and I go into crypto on that channel. And I have been invested in crypto for just over a year, where I've been actively trading and investing. And I have to be completely honest, I didn't know what I was doing at all at the beginning, and I really didn't take the time to do so until I realized that I needed to. One of those things, I think you actually mentioned that, Scott. There's a lot in this world that you don't quite know. You don't quite know that you need to know until you know.
Right.
And it wasn't until I began, I really decided I needed to take a deep dive into this world, really understanding that it is the future. And so I enrolled in a course that dove into crypto and DeFi, and that was the London Real Academy. And that has been about a 4 month deep dive into crypto, DeFi, NFTs, metaverse. And then, of course, along with that, a great journey and community. And so from there, I built my channel of Purified People, which encompasses crypto and just purifying every area of our life as well. And health and wellness and personal development is really my passion. And so I really haven't dove into my financial life until recent times. And since then, that's where I found crypto to be a passion of mine. Mainly just what it's going to do, I believe, for our freedoms and our personal freedoms. So that's what I'm sharing in my channel. And I'm looking forward to contributing, and working together and collaborating with you, Scott, and just seeing where this goes. And like you said, we're just kind of winging it today and getting started, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm glad that we're doing this. And yeah, let's get to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome, Brianna. And I think one of the reasons that I think Brown and I connected, because we were both in the London Real DeFi Academy. I'm actually still in it, still working on it. Brown has graduated from it, so I'm still learning some of the good nuggets. But we both really have this passion that crypto really can be a change for good in the world, and and have this sort of passion to, like, not only bring it to ourselves, but to help bring it to the world, and I just think that that's interesting. And what I find interesting about that, Brianna, I don't know if you've seen this, but I really see a lot of people in crypto with that viewpoint, that, you get into crypto and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. I want to share this with the world. Do you ever find that?
I do. It's one of those things you kind of hear it once you go crypto, you never go back.
Yeah.
And I find that totally true. If you know, I mean, if you know what crypto stands for, then you never go back. I must say, okay, there are people who invest in crypto blindly, and I have to admit, like I said, I did that for a very long time without understanding what it was. And they got in at the wrong time, got into the wrong coins. They may see it as something that they're going to go back from. But once you understand what it's going to contribute to the world, I don't see many people withdrawing from that. It becomes a fascination or an addiction for many people. So yes, I absolutely can agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we definitely have something in common there. But again, a lot of people that get into crypto do. And as Brianna mentioned, one of the things that we've talked about, and that is really passionate for me too, is we want more people to come into crypto. Not only is it good for us because, well, the more people into crypto, the prices rise, right? Supply and demand. It's obvious, but we just love it so much. We want to spread the word, and really do believe it's going to solve a lot of problems and a lot of issues, in not only finance but in custody and ownership and lots of areas, as hopefully we'll be talking about. But it's a catch-22. Some people are, as they're trying to make crypto easier, there's a lot of apps out there, like Robinhood. And again, I'm not picking on Robinhood because there's a lot of apps, but that does make it simpler for people to get into crypto. But Brianna and I were talking about this, is that on the backside is they don't really know what crypto is about. And if they're looking at it just as an asset, like a stock, they're kind of missing the boat, I think. And one of the amazing things, and we'll hopefully touch on that in later episodes, and certainly on our respective channels and YouTube channels, is the fact that you really have to kind of understand, or I think it helps to understand why crypto came, where it came from, and why it was adopted. Because that's when you really start to see the value. If you look at it just like another asset, like a stock or something like our bond, I think it misses that value. So yeah, so I like the fact that it's bringing in more, but one of my passions is to have people understand what's behind that app, and if it's crypto, what's behind it. Because the other thing that is actually a dangerous side of that is that, again, crypto is a volatile market. It's new. It's a baby. So with that babiness is a lot of experimentation, a lot of volatility, and people have value that they think that they have. It can be up and then it can be way down. And if they don't understand it, they're going to panic when it's down. And to be honest, at the time we're recording this, the market's down, the crypto market's down. Of course, all markets are down, but people sometimes are panicking about that. But that's what they don't understand. If they understood what I think Brianna and I do, they wouldn't be panicking, because they know that this asset's going to go back up, and that certainly Bitcoin is going to go back up, right, Brianna?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. It's a perspective as well. It truly is, and I've been on both ends of that perspective. Understanding the long term or the short term, viewing it for just being in the moment of it versus being in the long term of it. So it's certainly something to put some time into understanding. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna talk about some news items that we have each individually picked up and found interesting. But before we do that, I like to watch Brianna's channel, and you guys got to go to Purified People. Subscribe to her channel. It's really cool because it's very holistic. She has such a calming, sort of really good way that she talks about the concepts, not only just crypto, but just general, health and wellness and peace. So, but on her last episode, or one of her last episodes, she was talking about self-custody. And basically, self-custody meaning that when you have purchased crypto, you purchase it on an exchange, first of all, right? And then you can leave it on that exchange, but there may be some reasons you might want to move it. And you can move it to hot wallets or cold wallets. So I'm going to let Brianna explain a little bit about that, just a little bit about it. And then I've got a couple of questions for her. So explain to us really sort of your concept of what is self-custody and what are some of the options.
Sure. So when you invest in crypto, there are central exchanges such as Coinbase, such as Crypto.com, Kraken, Binance. There's multiple ones depending on your region that you may have access to. And the central exchanges are easily accessible. There's a lot of perks to those central exchanges. They're very convenient. They're very easy. You can use it on your phone. It's just very user friendly. A great way to get kind of in, and it's the way that I got started. So it almost serves as a bank, but a central bank. So you do have an intermediary in between your exchanges with those central exchanges. Whereas if you move to a hot wallet such as MetaMask, there's other ones as well. I personally have a MetaMask wallet. That's a hot wallet. And this allows you to do trades, but you have to do those exchanges through decentralized apps, such as SushiSwap, or there's multiple ones, but you do those in certain ways, and you have to switch cryptocurrency for cryptocurrency. So there's some more hurdles to jump through there. It's not as user friendly, just a different way of doing it. You're taking more accountability on your end. as being your own banker when you are performing those trades. And so there's a lot of attention to detail involved in that, and a lot of responsibility and ownership involved when you go into those hot wallets. On the other side of that, you don't have, if something happens, there's been instances in the past where those central exchanges do freeze, and so, or pause, or whatever may happen, where it just doesn't allow you to have that full ownership with those central exchanges versus the hot wallet or cold wallet. So now the cold wallet is where you have a ledger or a Trezor. I use a ledger personally, and that is where you have, I should have had it with me, but yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. You had my back there. That's what a ledger looks like. And that is your device that holds the keys to your cold storage. And what we were taught, and what I believe, is that your cold storage is where you hold your most valuable assets, the bulk of your assets. For me, that's the way that I view it. That's where I would hold the majority of my assets, to where I have full custody and I hold the keys. I would never share those keys with anybody else, and I would store that in a safe place. And that it's really, when it's in that place, it's untouchable from being frozen, from being hacked. For the most part, there's still little things here and there that you need to watch out for with those ledgers, with those cold storages, but it's the safest place. From what I know now, we have to just say that, because this is an evolving world. So that's those are differences in the central exchanges, hot, cold wallet, from a broad point of view.
Yeah, and I and it's basically called self custody, and it's kind of funny because you will find in the crypto world a whole language, right? There's a whole language in the crypto world, and even though self custody isn't really a strange term, in a way, you have to kind of think about it, because that could mean a lot of things. Somebody just says self custody, and it was funny because when I first read that, I'm like, what does that mean? Or, I guess I get what it means, but when you really understand the concept of crypto, and one of the terms I'm sure you've heard, Brianna, is not your keys, not your crypto. And so it really is just a quick little, it was a big meme that's out there that basically says, look, when you've moved your crypto or your assets over to a hot wallet, and then potentially over to a cold wallet, then you are now protected from that crypto being hacked or whatever on the central exchange, like Brianna said. But now you're on your own. You really are on your own, and this is the beauty, but it's also the point where people need to understand this, is that when you have self-custody, that's what it is. It means you are in charge and no one else is. There's no 800 number. When you move your crypto out and things don't work so good or whatever, you're on your own. You're in the decentralized world of finance. And it's a beautiful thing, because that means no one else is in control of your assets. No one can freeze your account. No one can stop you from, using your crypto any way you want to. But if you lose your password and your keys, you're out of luck. So as she explained, you've got the hot wallets, and basically it's just still a piece of software, and there's a couple different ways. I've experimented with both. You talked about MetaMask wallet, right? That, which is a browser extension, and it runs it. If you think about this, people have millions of dollars that are really sitting, in their hot wallets. Well, I'll just say thousands. I'm sure some people have millions of dollars in their hot wallets, and it's just to access to it. It's this little fox sitting up there, in the browser extension. And at first you're thinking, oh my God, does this seem safe? Because it just seems like we're all used to browsing and stuff, and yet that one little extension has the connection to your assets, the addresses, right, that can point to your assets. But the cool thing about that, it gets it off of the exchange, but it's still on the internet. It's still out there, right? And so this is why I assume that Brianna's really all in on cold storage or on cold wallets. And she didn't say it as much here, but if you watch her Purified People, she's like all in on cold storage. She's like, that's where I'm going for all of it. And so I had a question. It was funny, and I want to ask you this question when I watched that, because I totally agree with you. Totally agree with everything you've said about self-custody and about putting hot and cold wallets. But I sometimes wonder. I also have, as you can see, I have the ledger, and so I do put some of my assets there. But I also have some assets in a hot wallet, and I have some assets on the exchanges. And so I have sort of my opinion, but I just want to ask Brianna. It's like, have you thought about that? Is there any reason why you might want to have some, let's say, at least in maybe a MetaMask wallet, and then some in your cold storage? And do you think there's any time that you want to leave some crypto on the exchanges?
For me, and like I've said, this is an evolving thing, and it all has to do for me with the way that I've learned things. And a lot of the time, the way I've learned things through experiences and the way I've done things in the past. There's a quote that says, "You do anything like you do everything." And I keep this in my head every day, because I've always been on the riskier side of things, and I wait until something affects me personally in the past before I really take action.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been sitting here on the sidelines while I'm watching people close to me get affected by either their assets being frozen, or various things. And I keep hearing reoccurring messages, not your keys, not your crypto. But I've kind of put that to the wayside for convenience with central exchanges. And I had a majority at one point of my funds sitting on that central exchange. And even before I had taken the note, to think twice, way back when I first started, I thought, okay, Bitcoin, unhackable, the certain things. I didn't relate that to, okay, once it's on a central exchange, that may be different. I didn't put the two
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of been my progression of understandings and learnings through experience. And once I get passionate about something, I will get very passionate. And that's what my recent videos have been on. I do. So I do feel that there are times for minimal amounts for me to have them on the central exchanges. And that is, there's some that aren't compatible to get onto certain places. But I also, it's that risk to reward for every transaction, for every investment. Now, for me, I'm finding as time goes on, what is seeming like the ones that are the most valuable to me that are going to be in that cold storage. And that's going to be the bulk of my funds. I do have a minimal amount still in a central exchange, enough to where if I lose it, I can sleep that night.
Right.
If it's frozen, I can sleep that night. But I'm not going to put all of my assets on a central exchange that I see ever again, unless for some reason I have very minimal assets. And it's just the way that I see it. I don't want to have more in there that I am not willing to lose. I feel a little bit differently about that. And I know it's kind of going against a lot of the rules that you'll hear, but for me personally, with my ledger, when it's stored on there, I feel different about that willingness to lose. There's certain ones that I don't feel worried about losing, as far as what I'm invested in. And so I feel safer them being there, and I can sleep at night, what's on my central exchanges is the way that I view that.
Okay. Good answer. No, that makes perfect sense. And I would say that given that answer, I totally agree. I sort of view it as, and I'll just say, like, for right now, really all I'm putting into my ledger is my Bitcoin, because for me, Bitcoin is a store of value. It's for the long run. And I'm not going to play with it. I'm not going to trade it. I'm not going to mess around with it. So as we've talked about, the safest place then, if I just am going to hold on to this stuff, is going to be in my cold wallet. It's not connected to the internet. It's mine. I put it in a safe, although it was sitting here on my desk, but I keep it in a safe place. And it's the safest place right now for most of us to have our crypto. So as Brianna alluded, certainly with the MetaMask wallet. So for me, I don't want to say playing around, but I basically have some funds, less than $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000 that I'm putting in, and I'm testing out different, DeFi protocols. I'm testing out some liquidity pools. I've got some, different stuff that I'm putting in. And so that is in my hot wallet, because MetaMask, one of the nice things about that is it's a cross-chain wallet. So you can have multiple chains in there, and it's a decentralized wallet also. So you can keep the assets in that hot wallet, but when they're in a liquidity fund, they're actually still stored in my wallet, but they're pointing to that liquidity fund. So they're in my hot wallet. And so I still feel pretty secure about that. There are some then that I actually take from MetaMask and put it into more like a central bank, if you will. And those assets are then sitting sort of in that bank. And again, if that, and I'll just say it was the Luna Terra situation, which if you're been into crypto, you know what that is. And yeah, and I had money in the Anchor protocol, and of course that wasn't that it got hacked or lost. It's just the value fell down to zero, and so that was that. Another learning experience. Maybe we'll talk about that experience. And as we know now, again at this recording time, Celsius and Nexo and some of these other sort of banks, they're like crypto banks kind of, because they're kind of not completely decentralized, but they use crypto. But you've got to have your crypto in their control, and Celsius has frozen access for people to withdraw. So that's another great reason, to either have it. I don't even know, like, I do believe that there are ways that you can have your funds actually in your hot wallet, but then working for you in some of these decentralized exchanges. So that I'm actually not that up to speed on that, how that actually works. But as far as on the exchange itself, so like on Coinbase itself, yeah, I don't have very much at all in there. I basically use that to take my fiat and move it into Coinbase, and then I move it off into somewhere else. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting. I think it's a really interesting topic. Hopefully, somebody has learned something from it, and even if they haven't, it's always a good reminder, right? Not your keys, not your crypto. So if you lose your keys, you lose your crypto. So it's a good thing to know.
Mm-hmm. And I have someone very close to me who's lost their keys from, well back in the day, and it's one of those. It's just something that to definitely have and take seriously. And one more note to add on that, on the central exchanges for day trading as well. If you're a day trader, right, I can see why you would be. I'm not much of a day trader, but if you were, I could see why you would be on a central exchange versus the other ones. But maybe people can. I haven't ever gone that route with using a hot wallet for anything like that. But it's just the convenience of that central exchange.
Yeah.
But
okay, cool. Well, I think we beat that one to death, but I think it's a good topic, and I wanted to bring it up. So I'm gonna share my screen here and talk about a couple articles, and then we'll let Brianna talk about a couple that she has noted. All right, here. So can you see that?
I can see it. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So here was an article that was interesting, and so it says 6 million bounty paid to white hat hackers likely averts stable DeFi hacked. So, the news picks up when there's a hack event in crypto, and crypto is new and it moves fast, and there are going to be some holes, and there are lots of smart people that are trying to take advantage of that all the time. But the news does hype it up quite a bit, makes it seem like some of the new people that I'm talking about getting to crypto, they're like, oh, that's just full of hackers and scam artists, I'm like, no, it's not, but it does seem like that sometimes. But here was an interesting situation. What this was that this company, what does it say? Aurora Protocol, they basically were white hat hacked, which is that a hacker went in there and found this vulnerability, but instead of actually hacking them and stealing their stuff, they say, "Hey, look, I've got this. You've got this hole which I can get in and take money, but I won't do that if you pay me $6 million." And they paid it. They're like, "Yeah, we'll pay that," because it could have saved up to 200 million. I guess could have been hacked if they hadn't have done that. So you hear about that sometimes in even in the traditional finance. I've heard about these white hat hackers that, they go to work and, they're on the good side. These guys are kind of playing the fence, though, because they're not really good guys. I mean, they still extorted $6 million from this company, but, it could have been worse, I guess. I mean, what do you think about that, Brianna?
Yeah, so I'm curious. So the white hat hackers, is this their job to do this? Or is this just people who are...
Yeah,
I'm confused on that.
Yeah. So it is. That's a really good question. I had that same thought, because there are people that do that for a job. They get paid. They're usually consultants, and companies will actually pay them to look into their vulnerabilities, but it's more of a up and up, transaction, and we're going to pay you. You try to hack our thing, and then let us know where the vulnerabilities are. This is different. These are hackers, from what I can tell. They just did it a little bit differently, So I'm not saying it's a good thing at all necessarily, but it was interesting to see, because most of the articles that you see when it comes to something like this are so and so got hacked, $100 million or whatever was out. This was a little different take on it, so I thought it was kind of funny to highlight. Let's see. There's some more things I put in red here. It says this marks one of the largest ever known bounty payouts in DeFi. So that's kind of what they call this, bounty payout. So last month, a crypto bridge Wormhole, which connects different blockchains together, paid $10 million in an ethical security hacker that also discovered a bug. So it's interesting that they're calling this ethical. I don't know if it's so ethical, but it could be worse. So anyways, we'll keep an eye on this to see how this kind of pans out, because in a way, it is actually doing good for overall crypto. And one of the things that I heard somebody say to me when I was complaining about these hacks happening, I'm like, the crypto world's got to figure these hacks out, because if people are scared that they're going to get hacked, they're not going to come in. And so in a way, this is helping secure it, because every time someone gets hacked, then they close that vulnerability and they start paying attention. And then when it comes out the news, like everybody's like, oh yeah, I better pay more attention. So I think slowly by slowly, it's getting better. But I'm sure this is the way it was in the early days of the internet, the early days of any sort of technology.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And like you said, we're in the early days. Will this fly in a few years? Probably not.
Right.
But that's really interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's still the Wild West.
It is. It's just funny that they call them ethical. All right, so let me share another article here. I think this is it. Yeah, so this is kind of old news now, but I just wanted to bring it up about this bipartisan crypto bill that Congress is looking at, and it was brought to the Senate by Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and who's the other lady? Senator Loomis, and so this is there have been other bills that have gone to Congress about crypto, but nothing substantial or big has certainly come out as far as regulation or legislation. But in the recent years, they are trying to do that, and so I'm curious to get your take on your view of this. But my view of regulation and some legislations, I think it's a good thing, because again, it is the wild, wild west. There does need to be some controls, but what we're afraid of in the crypto space is that they're going to go too far. What we certainly don't want is for them to regulate the crypto space just like the traditional finance space, because it's different, and that will really shut down a lot of things. A lot of the innovation, especially in the DeFi world, is because it is new and it is different than what we see in the traditional financial world. And so there's all sorts of levels of regulation, and then you've got bills that are type of regulation, but maybe even more tighter depending on how they're implemented, I guess. But so anyways, one of the things I wanted to point out here, let's see if I highlighted some things. No, I didn't put any highlights in here, but just to summarize, that they're still trying to figure out in coins, like you got Bitcoin, Ethereum, you got Solana, you got these other layer one chains, you've got tokens, thousands of different ones, how to regulate these. Because in crypto, I guess like in traditional finance too, stocks behave a certain way. There's certain things that need to be regulated in stocks, certain things in derivatives, or certain ways that you regulate, say, commodity trading and so on, bonds and so on. It's the same thing in crypto. Bitcoin behaves completely different than, let's say, a Shiba token or whatever, right? And so the question is, do you need the same regulation for, say, a Bitcoin that you do for, say, a Dogecoin or a Shiba coin? And so they're looking at these differences. And so I think that's good, because we definitely don't want them to put blanket legislation on, at least in my opinion. But one of the things is that when news like this comes out, a lot of people get really defensive and really scared, like, oh no, here they come. They're going to regulate everything. They're going to make it just like that. And one of the, I think that it points out in this article is that when these bills start off, and this bill has just been introduced, and it's going to go through lots of changes, lots of iterations. It's not going to look like anything that it might look like now. There's going to be all sorts of changes. So for the most part, in my opinion, we just need to chill and kind of keep our eyes on it and see what happens. But I'm hoping that there is a little bit of regulation that will make it easier, a little more safe, because that'll just be able to bring more people in. What are you thinking about this, Brianna?
Oh gosh, I could go so far into regulations. My view on regulations is all over the place. My first initial reaction when I heard of regulations coming in was fearful, just like you said. But that was a long time ago. And then I started to see new perspectives as to how this can help the space and how that can bring in more wider adoption and that adoption. And that's one thing that for me was a positive. Anytime there's people who don't quite understand what's going on the inside, putting in regulations, that's scary to me. Just, so I've had thoughts at times is, oh, maybe it'd be nice if the innovators could be the ones that make the regulations. Those are the thoughts that go through my head because they know what to look out for, or at least be in a part of it in some way. Because from what I've seen, and I won't go too deep into this, but a lot of the regulations that we have here in the United States has been what control can they take from it and gain off of it with some other maybe helping hands in some ways. And so that's my fear. But then on the broader view, this is not just something in the United States. This is a global thing. And so there's competition amongst the countries as well. And so we have so many different factors coming in when it comes to all of this and the regulations. I think, like you said, I think we all just need to relax, hope for the best. It's going to be something that's going to change so much. Like you said, it will be changing constantly. It's going to be hard to keep up, I think, for the regulators. And it'll probably be kind of a mess, I'm projecting. But I don't know, I'm just going to hope for the best on this. I'm not going to be too fearful, and hopefully it will bring some comfort to those who are skeptical, and reduce some of the negativity that's going on that just doesn't need to be there, but we'll see. I mean, I'm just hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about it is that, again, this is back to our discussion about understanding why Bitcoin was created, how crypto was created, and why. And so when you go down that rabbit hole and you start to understand that crypto was really born out of sort of the cyberpunk type of people, and they didn't want their freedoms treaded on, right, from big government. There were some of them were pretty anti-government at the time, and though we don't really know, I think where Satoshi Nakamoto landed in that, we do know that he's the founder of Bitcoin. He, she, it, whoever, pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto. It came out of the 2008 financial world crisis, right? And in his white paper, he talks about that this is a currency that won't behave like the other currencies and won't get into the problems that we're currently in 2008 when he was writing it. And so as Bitcoin evolved and crypto evolved, hardcore crypto people are really against any sort of regulation, any government involvement. And so it's interesting. And as it evolves, you still run into these hardcore crypto people, right? And hardcore Bitcoin maximalists, right, is what they call them. And they don't want any of it. So if they start writing articles and they're going to panic. And so that's why I think, as more people come into this, I'm kind of a centrist politically in all ways, anyways. And so I'm like, there needs to be a little of this and a little of that. Let's get together and talk about it, and see where we go. But yeah, so I think it's, I'll definitely keep my eye on regulation and where it goes. And like you said, I'm not going to stress out about it. I'm going to hope for the best and put the most positive light I can on it. And I think that's all we can do.
It's all we can do. Yeah. We can only focus on what we can have any control over. So yeah,
Right.
we can sit here and just hope for the best.
Right, right. Okay, well, that's my couple articles. So I know that you have a couple or one that you want to talk about. You want to share your screen?
Yes, I will share one if I've learned how to share a screen by now. I think I have.
I think you have. I think I've allowed it to happen. Sometimes that. There we go.
There we go.
Here we go.
Are you able to see this okay?
Yeah. Yep.
There. Okay. So this article is why is nobody talking about the Ethereum merge? And this caught my attention a couple of days ago when it came up because I was wondering that as well. You know, I don't follow it too heavily, but the Ethereum merge moving from proof of work to proof of stake is kind of a big deal. It's been something that people have been talking about for years and years and waiting. And so when this happened 2 weeks ago, they did the first test and it was successful. And I saw one article, and me personally, I was thinking that the whole crypto market or the whole crypto media was going to go crazy over this. And I saw one article and nothing else really happened and nobody else was talking about it. So it just shocked me. But this article kind of goes into what this person who wrote this article expects the impact of this to happen when it goes into full effect I believe it's supposed to happen in August. And so right here, I put in some red. So referred to as the merge, the transition to proof of stake on Ethereum mainnet is due to take place this summer. And it's definitely the most positive news that you will hear during this bear market. It's one of the most highly anticipated technological developments in the cryptoverse, and most crypto veterans were hype on this. Kind of what I was just saying. You know, the hype was there, and then it was almost like the hype was sucked out because people were just kind of waiting for it, and then there were timelines put in, and then that timeline would pass, and it still wouldn't have happened. But this person is just saying that if you're just unsure of how disruptive the merge can be, it's time to check back in because it's actually going to come in this time around. So once it's live, this will have deep implications in the cryptocurrency world and beyond. It could even threaten Bitcoin's dominance and first mover advantage. I'm curious.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
On that? Do you have any thoughts
Oh
on
yeah.
Bitcoin?
Well, first I want to clarify something a little bit. So it's my understanding that what happened a couple of weeks ago was like stage one of multiple stages of the merge. Is that right?
So I believe it was a test run, as far as I've gone into it, but it wasn't the full merge. It was not the full merge.
Okay, yeah.
It was to see if this proof of stake was successful.
Okay, yeah. So okay, yeah, and it is there is a lot of parts to it, and it can get really complicated. So I'm like you, kind of just pulling pieces out that I'm trying to understand. So my first thought would be, because it's not the full merge, I think that also may have contributed to people not, making that big a deal out of it, because even though it was the first, I guess, big move towards this full merge, and it was successful, I think people are like, okay, well, let's wait till the whole thing happens. And also, what I believe is that the test net, it's this test net, and yeah, called the Beacon Chain. It's actually been running, and as far as I know, for at least a year or two, and it sort of as a separate entity, preparing. And it's been really, they were really confident that it was working really good. But you do never know when they've turned it on. So now the full Ethereum network, it's like both of these chains or both these networks are working, and they're, I don't want to go into it, but there is some interesting stuff about how that is happening, because you still have the proof of work happening in the Ethereum network, but then there's some of it that are doing the new proof of stake. And so how it's being divided, and whose transactions are getting what part, I mean, who knows? But apparently it went really well. I think, without getting too crazy into this, I do think that we do a disservice if we didn't talk a little bit about what is the difference? What is proof of work? And again, neither one of us are experts, but I think between the two of us, we can give you guys, if you have no clue what we're talking about, a little idea of the difference between what is proof of work and why is Ethereum moving to proof of stake. So I'll give it a shot here. Actually, no, let me back up. You give it a shot. Give us your best shot on really what is proof of work
Goodness,
and
great.
what? I putting you on the spot?
You're starting to cut out a little bit, so I'm not sure if I'm cutting it on my end. But for me, when I first entered into, I just have to say, I think rather than try to dive into what they both are, because I think I just already know you're going to do a better job at explaining that. For me, when I first got started to invest and was looking into it really seriously, what really drew me away was the environmental impact that I was seeing on articles. That was something that was my biggest thing that I was weary of. Now, I've heard multiple arguments. I've heard multiple people, give their perspectives. And I've heard also on one end that what people say about Bitcoin, it being proof of work, and showing that it does have high energy usage. It does leave a high carbon footprint. And then relating that to what the central banks use in a day and accumulative and how those compare. There's multiple arguments to be made there. So proof of work is using mining. And I think that this is where you should go in and go ahead and probably give a better explanation of what you know.
Well, no, I think yeah, no, I appreciate that, but I think the point you're making is really a huge one, and that is that proof of work, because of it uses this mining process, does use all this energy, and there is this big question of, is this adding to global warming? Are we just using up all the energy? Does it make sense to even do this? And so there has been a push to do a couple of things. One, move to some other way to validate transactions. So let's see. I'm going to try to do this as short as possible, but it's almost too hard. I love talking about this stuff, but I don't want to go too crazy. But Bitcoin being the first blockchain cryptocurrency, and blockchain, the underlying technology, what's so amazing about it is this what's called consensus. And if you think about it, now in the traditional financial world, there's always got to be people involved in all the transactions to make sure everything goes okay, right? There's people involved. Well, in crypto, in the decentralized world, what we're trying to do is get away from that. So you've got to use software mechanism that has really no people involved to make sure the transactions work properly and that nobody's hacking or stealing or doing anything wrong. Right. Well, this consensus is a way of doing this, and so you've got multiple computers in the networks, and in Bitcoin, in the traditional proof of work, the miners are basically solving these calculations on these computers, right? Doing this work, and they're competing to see who is going to get to validate the transaction, because there's thousands of miners out there, and these computations are so intense. It takes massive computer power to actually crack these codes, these puzzles, and so typically we're talking about thousands of computers networked together, sitting in these huge warehouses. That so much energy is being used by all these computers to crack this code. The heat, you've got to put refrigeration in there and all sorts of cooling devices because they overheat because it uses so much energy. Well, if that's using that energy, then you have miners all over the world. We're talking about massive consumption of energy, and really, are we going to just continue to pollute the planet and so on? So that was a big thing for people in crypto. They're like, hey, we want this decentralized kind of better world with finance, but if we're killing off the world with all this computing power, that's not going to help. So there was this really big push to do two things. One, move to what's called proof of stake, which is a different way of doing the validation in the network to make sure all the transactions work, right? And it doesn't use as much energy. It uses a whole different mechanism than this original proof of work. The second thing they did, and this is the part that I always want to remind people, without even getting into proof of work, is that the miners knew this. They understood this, and so they have been trying for multiple years now to use the cleanest, greenest resources of energy they can find. So typically, what we find now is that they're putting these mining facilities near hydroelectric dams. They're putting them in near solar generated power plants. They're putting them sometimes in little mini mining companies right into refineries that they can just pull the energy right off of the refinery, so it's not like they're using traditional normal energy. So they're finding ways, and in fact they're pushing the envelope that I think will push the entire world into greener energy consumption, because they're on the cutting edge, and it's a financial incentive for them to know, how can I use the cleanest, cheapest, best source of energy. So they're doing that now. So that's on the one hand, because Bitcoin is proof of work, and it's still the big dog, and it's going to be proof of work for a while. Ethereum, on the other hand, who start off, copying that and using proof of work, it is moving towards this new proof of stake. And so it's been trying this for years and years and years, and they've been testing this. And so now this merge is going to then eventually be where there's no mining consensus. We're getting rid of all that power consumption. The transactions will be much faster. What we pay, when we use transactions on the Ethereum network now, we have to pay what's called gas, and this is what goes to pay the miners on the Ethereum network, and that can be sometimes half of your transaction. It can be very costly sometimes. So everybody knows that this needs to change. So this is a huge deal, Brianna, to move to proof of stake, and so this is just the very beginning. And a lot of people have said that what's holding Ethereum back, why Ethereum isn't more popular, isn't higher price, isn't overtaking Bitcoin now, is that it has to get into this proof of stake completely, and it has to work, flawlessly. The gas prices for using the transactions have to go down, and this has to happen. But it's very, very complicated, and so they don't want to break the Ethereum network, right? And so they're doing really little steps. So to make the huge long story, kind of coming back to your original thing, I think that maybe a little bit is that they've been testing this thing for a long time, and we've been hearing, oh, it's going to happen, the merge is going to happen, and people are they're calling wolf, right? It's like, oh yeah, okay, so it's going to happen again. It might be why it kind of was underwhelming. And then the second part is there's multiple more steps. So at least that's my take.
Very well done. That was better than I could have ever done. Way to go over there. That was a great explanation. And yeah, that was nice. So yeah, I appreciate that. And then back to this article. So proof of stake uses around 99.95% less energy. And that's why it's so appealing for widespread adoption. And some people thinking that Ethereum may outperform or be more widespreadly adopted than Bitcoin. That's just some people's perspectives.
What do you, let me just cut in there. Do you think it will? Let's say proof of stake, totally works and everything's cool. Do you think it will happen, and why do you think it will happen?
Based on the way that I feel right now, I personally have never felt that anything will catch up to Bitcoin. That has been my thought. Considering though the fact that we have most of the world to still adopt all of this, if you never know. I mean, this is a game changer. This is a game changer for sure. It will be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I'm not quite sure, and I think that some politics will come in on that when it really does come down to it. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, we don't know. If we knew, we'd be super, super rich, or we'd be, staking and putting futures in or something. But I think it's interesting because I love Bitcoin. I think for what it is and what it does, well, I could go into a lot of it, because you talk about a network that's never been hacked. The network has never been hacked. So it clearly does a lot of good things, but it is slow, and it does have some issues, with that. So But as a store of value for, like digital gold, I'm perfectly happy, with that. Ethereum was created to do much more than Bitcoin, though. So Ethereum is this programmable, say, blockchain, if you will, so that now different applications can run on top of it. And I think a lot of people, because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applications and DeFi protocols and all sorts of stuff that are running on top of the Ethereum network. And the question is, why isn't it worth way more than Bitcoin now? Because it seems to be a lot more useful. Like there's a lot more use case for Ethereum than there is for Bitcoin. And I think one of it is this actual situation right here is that the transactions right now, just to run these applications on top of the Ethereum network, cost a lot in gas. So for me, like, you all have heard of NFTs. If you want to mint an NFT, you're going to pay gas fees. And sometimes if you've got multiple transactions, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars in gas fees just to even get an NFT. So that's like one example of many. So I think if they can get this figured out, and now the gas fees go away, the transactions are much faster, my thought is it will take over. It will. Now, Bitcoin, I hope and I believe that it will be what it is for a long time. And I'm perfectly happy with Bitcoin being a store of value of digital gold, and I save for that like gold. But Ethereum, it's the worker bee. It's got it. People are working on stuff on top of it is working, and you've got to have that layer one just humming along perfectly so that everything on top of it can run really smoothly. And when it does, I think watch out. I think Ethereum is going to just be huge. Now, there's a whole bunch of other layer ones out there that are vying to become the Ethereum and overtake Ethereum. So we'll see if that happens. But that's sort of my take on it.
I like that perspective. Yeah. And kind of what ends this article with a bang is that what it's saying here is that it could reverse the bear market in all hopes.
Right.
So staked Ethereum will bring a whole new consensus mechanism that will make Ethereum a lot more scarce due to reduced issuance. And it goes into, coupled with the right adoption event, could potentially cause a paradigm shift in the market. Once large-scale events seems to be enough to mark a bear market, it stands to reason the opposite should hold true to mark the start of a new bull run. Under the right circumstances, which is an event, is the drop that will ripple through the cryptoverse and only make Ethereum more popular. People will start accumulating due to FOMO. And just like that, we have a brand new bull market. And then it again leads to that it could really lead to cryptocurrency adoption. You can see how most of these themes are in one way or another related to cryptocurrency adoption. The thing is, staked Ethereum will finally get governments to shut up, as they say, about how unsustainable blue chip cryptocurrencies are and how they won't be adopted. Here you have the first and most secure smart contract platform out there that just became 99.95% energy efficient. So the Ethereum merge is second to none when it comes to cryptocurrency paradigm shift. And I can't stress enough how odd it is that it seems people don't talk about it enough. The merge will irreversibly impact every crypto believer out there and have extensive ramifications that we won't even know about in the beginning.
Wow, that's pretty bold. Yeah, that's a real statement there. I mean, this guy is really he's like, yeah, it's all about this. And like I mentioned before, I agree to a certain extent. I think I'm just kind of waiting, to see. But he's right in that it could, like I said, if Ethereum is running smoothly and it gets rid of some of its problems and issues, I mean, it is such a front runner. I'm trying to think of any other industry, that had such a big lead over all the other competitors, and they say that is the biggest thing, but eventually, competitors can catch up. And I think obviously the other competitors, the layer ones, are hoping that this has lots of hiccups so they can, go ahead. And it could happen. Just, we don't know. But the one thing I know about the Ethereum network and Vitalik and the creator of it and the people in the project is they're slow. They have been testing this over and over for a very, very long time. So they understand the seriousness of it, and they're not going to put out stuff that's shabby, so they're going to make sure it works. So I, for one, am willing to like just chill, kind of like we talked about regulation, just chill out, just wait for it. That's kind of, if I had to sum up my view on crypto, that's what it is. It's just like, chill out, everybody. It's like, crypto is here to stay. Quit being in such a hurry to like, move it all forward. And when the market is down, it is bargain time, baby. I mean, come on, buy the dip.
Exactly. Yeah. I personally I'm okay with a long bear market for me. I mean, the more that I can get in at a comfortable level for myself, I'm okay with it lasting a little bit longer. And
Yeah.
I think my personal view at this time is once it goes on that next bull run, we won't see numbers that we're seeing today. I don't think Ethereum we're going to be seeing probably in the future. I mean, you never know, but we probably won't see those triple digits like we just saw. So it's exciting times. Like you said, we just need to chill out and enjoy the ride and just be thankful to be a part of this revolution and at this point in history, and just soak up every moment of it. It's an exciting ride.
It is. I think that's so true. It is, and I get it. If you jumped into the market when Bitcoin was 60,000 or so, and looking at it now, I mean, I get it. It doesn't feel good. But as Brianna and I talked about this, and I say this all the time, you don't lose anything until you sell. Just as like you really don't gain anything, until you sell either, And so as long as you're holding, you're okay, and as long as it doesn't go to zero, you're okay. Now, I've lived through that. I lived through the Terra Luna crisis where UST is pretty much down to zero. I mean, it was a stable coin, so it only needed to be up at $1, but zero is zero, and that isn't worth much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm always going to harp on a couple of things. Probably say this every time I get online, and that is, just don't put money into the crypto market that you can't afford to lose, even in your cold storage wallet. I mean, there's levels. It's like I'm gonna have a big store in my cold storage wallet. But I need to always understand that for at least now, probably for the multiple years, it's a market that is so volatile that anything could happen. And so, if it crashed completely, I'd be mad, I'd be devastated, but I wouldn't be out of the game completely. I wouldn't be on the streets. Mm-hmm. And I'm just saying, just don't do that. With anything. So I'm always going to say that. And what we should have said at the beginning, I just think it's always good to say this, is that this is not financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Please go into crypto at your own risk, and only put in money that you could afford to lose. We should have said that at the beginning, but we'll get better. We'll get better at this.
Yes, it's an important note.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brianna. We could talk for hours of this, and we have actually offline. We'll go hours. Like, oh my gosh, but it is exciting times. We're geeks about it, and we're fairly new, guys. So pass this around if you thought this was kind of fun. Maybe you learned a couple things or two, or just thought these are two goofy people, talking about nerd money. That's fine too. But pass it on to your friends. We're going to be around for the long run, I think, and hopefully you can tell that we're passionate individuals, that we're positive, we're all about health and fitness and wealthiness, all about life. So yeah. So Brianna, thank you again.
Yes, and thank you. I'm very thankful to be here, and I'm glad that you came up with this brilliant idea for us to chat about something we're passionate about. And like you said, we're passionate about many of the same things. So I'm looking forward to this journey. And this has been great so far. I thought today went well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next time, and appreciate everybody who's listening, and hope that you decide to be along for the ride with us. And like you just said, Scott, we're just learning, we've been in the game for some time. We've learned a lot, but there's a lot more to learn. And I don't know if anybody can ever be an expert here, but we're just along for the ride. So we just hope that people will enjoy it, will join the ride with us. So
yeah, and I'll just leave this, follow Brianna's channel at Purified People. You can follow my channel at Crypto for the Rest of Us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.